Hey everybody, it's Emily, and we're here for the Arrrgh book club discussion of Circe by Madeline Miller, which I have right here behind me on my shelf. Um, so I'll wait a minute and you guys can say hi if you're here, or I'll wait until people arrive and then we can start talking about the book. I'm excited to talk about this one because I really enjoyed it a lot. I'd read I'd read Song of Achilles a few years back. I think it's probably been like, I don't even know when did that book come out. It's probably been a few years. Um, Hi, and so it's been a little while since I'd read Song of Achilles, but that is one of my favorite books, and it was so beautiful. And I've owned Circe since it came out, and I haven't read it until just recently for the book club because I was afraid that it might not live up to like how good Song of Achilles was, but it did. It surprised me how good it was. Like I would now say that I'll read anything Madeline Miller writes. I think she's just brilliant, and I want to read everything she's ever going to write in the future. I'm excited to see what she comes out with in the future too. So yeah, I almost said Song of Achilles. So I gave Circe 5 stars. I thought this was excellent. And yeah, so why don't we just talk about it? Sarah's not here. She had to work today anyway, but she didn't actually get to read this month. But I'm really bummed about that because I feel like this book is such a Sarah book. She was obsessed with Greek mythology as a young teen, and actually she's still really into that kind of stuff, but like she loved Greek mythology, and she even wrote her own like Greek myth retelling when she was a kid. So like I was like, Sarah, you need to read this. Hi Erin, hi Liz. So okay, one of the things that I loved the most about this was just the scope. I had no idea going in what this was going to be. I knew who Circe was. I've read the Odyssey. Like I knew her part in that, and I kind of thought that where Song of Achilles was a like Iliad retelling, I thought this was going to just be an Odyssey retelling. And so I did not expect the scope of like how much mythology we covered in this book. It was like a who's who in Greek mythology, which was just so fun because I've read a fair share of Greek mythology, but I've never like I could have never come up with a scenario where I would read a book that touched on so many different myths in one story. So I thought that was really great. Yeah, was there a myth in here was that anyone came upon that they didn't know or hadn't heard of before? I would be very curious because there's so much. I admit I don't know a lot about Medea and Jason and the Golden Fleece. Like I vaguely know of that story, but I don't know much. Um, but otherwise, I think I'd heard of pretty much everything that had happened in this book, which surprised me because I didn't think I knew that much Greek mythology. But I just found this so much fun. I think the other thing that I really like is just the character of Circe. I like that we get to know her so much as a person, as a goddess, and that we spend so much time inside her mind because it's been a while since I read the Odyssey, but like we only get to see her through the perspective of other men. So getting to see her like more realized was just so great. Yes, Liz, I agree. I knew of Scylla. I knew what that was, but finding out like how she became like just the sheer amount of research Madeline Miller had to have done to connect all of these stories to Circe is wild. Like I just that's so fascinating. Like if I was ever going to be an author, if I was ever going to write this kind of book, I would want to write a book like that, like that just has such a grand scope. I think that would be super fun to research and write. But I could never. Like, in my wildest dreams, I think that would be fun to do, but I could never pull that off anywhere near as brilliantly as this was done. Yeah. Oh, I agree, Erin. I also don't know how she was able to weave everything so seamlessly. Like, at no point did I feel like it was info dumpy, which I normally, like, if somebody's going to throw that much stuff in a story, I kind of feel like it tends to drag the story down or make it more like too much information. I never felt like that. I always it just it felt like it was seamless, and I think that's brilliant. Madeline Miller is amazing. Goddess among authors. Has anyone here read Song of Achilles? I'm just curious if anyone else has read anything else by Madeline Miller, because she only has those two books out. And I know she's working on a third book now, which I'm very excited for. I'm going to put this down because I don't know why I'm still holding it. I'm going to put you back up here. Okay, Erin's read it. Awesome. I read that. I don't even know what year it was when I read it. It's been several years, but I was just so blown away by Song of Achilles because it's a story that I've known, but I did not expect it to have the emotional impact that it did. Like, I mean, it's an Iliad retelling, so if you know about the Iliad, you know what's going to happen in the story. But oh my gosh, the just sheer emotional impact of that book. I will say, as much as I love Circe, I don't think it had the same emotional impact as Song of Achilles, but I also think they're very different stories. So maybe it's not meant to. I didn't cry reading Circe, which I was anticipating a moment that was going to hit me, but it never did. So I don't know. I still loved it. It was still a 5-star read for me, but it didn't have the emotional like resonance and sadness that Song of Achilles did. So I was looking for questions to discuss. So I did find some, but we'll see what I can come up with here too. So basically, let's see, what's the first question? Madeline Miller is a scholar of the classics, and that comes across in this novel. How familiar were you with the story of Odysseus before reading this novel, and how familiar were you with Circe? Do you think people would benefit from knowing the story of Odysseus before reading? I would say that I don't think you need background knowledge for the story to work for you. I think that Madeline Miller's writing is so great that she pulls you into the story, whether you are a classic scholar or a complete noob. I think you can still get a lot out of it. Like, I would never call myself a classic scholar. Like, I've read the Iliad and I've read parts of the Odyssey. Like, I know most of the story, but it's been a long time since I read the entire thing. But I feel like I got a lot out of this book, and now I kind of want to dig deeper and read more of all of that. Like, I want to know everything. I have discovered in like the last 2 years that mythology retellings are one of my favorite things. And I had no idea. Like, I would have never thought that would be a favorite for me. I like mythology enough, but like it was never my favorite thing. But I have read so many amazing mythology retellings in the last couple of years that I just feel like it's maybe like, is that a genre? Mythology retellings? That might be my new favorite thing. I might do a video too, because I've been thinking about it the last like 2 days, like all of the amazing mythology retellings that I've read. And I want to read so many more because suddenly I'm like, oh gosh, what else is there? What have I not read yet that I need to read? But so yeah, anyone who has any, leave me recommendations because I just feel like this is a genre I need to further explore. Okay, Aaron says, I read Circe a while ago and it was a 4-star read for me, but then the kids and I studied Greek mythology a ton this year, and the background made me appreciate the book so much more. Ah, yes, I think this book made me want to deep dive. Like, I really want to stop everything I've got on tap for this month and like read Greek mythology, but I'm gonna like, I'm not, I can't. I have other things I have to do, but I really want to do that because I feel like this book just touched on so many things. Like, I already researched Prometheus a little bit right before this video because like I couldn't remember that much about the Prometheus mythology, and I wanted to know like what its deeper meaning was for this book. And now that I've done that, I'm like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. Um, yes, we read The Witch's Heart for book club last year, and that was the one that like I was like, okay, I want more things like this, because it was so good. I've heard of, I don't know how to pronounce it, Kaikei, I'm not sure, but I've heard of that one and it is on my radar, but I don't own it yet because I've been like trying super hard not to buy myself new things when I know I don't have time for them. But that is definitely like pretty high up on the list of books that I want to purchase for myself because I think I'm going to love it, because I don't know, like I don't know about the Ramayana very much. I vaguely have heard like a little bit of it about it, but I don't know what that is. Like, I've never read it. So I really want to read that. But yeah, mythology retellings are apparently a thing that I love. So, and I think The Witch's Heart is the first one I read where I just went, I need more of this because that was so good. So if you haven't read The Witch's Heart, which is up here by Genevieve Gornichek, I had to think, I couldn't remember her name, then I highly recommend checking that out because that book was fantastic. And obviously Song of Achilles. If you haven't read that yet, you definitely should. And we also, for, was it this year or last year? When did we read 1,000 Ships? That might be this year. I can't remember. But that was amazing. That one was, who wrote that? Natalie Haynes, I think. That was very good. So anyway, I'm going to do a video because I want to sit down and go through my shelves and see if I had anything else that I'm forgetting about. But so many great mythology retellings. I think they're a great way, though, to like get into mythology without having to read mythology first, because I think sometimes when you read mythology, it can be a lot. Like, there was a lot of names dropped in this book, and I think if I had just been handed a book of the mythology, it would have become boring. But the way Circe is written is so good because you never feel bogged down. You never feel like there's too many things happening. So yes, Christina, you have to read Song of Achilles. It is so good. It's one of my favorite books, and I've been very excited in the last couple of years to see it like getting so much new readership, because I think Book Talk is what like pulled it out. And yeah, yes, Kaikei is definitely one I want to read, which I know I'm saying wrong. I'm terrible at pronunciation. Okay, what else do we want to talk about here? This has been called a feminist retelling of Circe's story. Would you agree with this? And if so, what makes the story feminist? I don't know. I think I would say the thing that really sticks out to me is that this is the first time I think Circe is getting a story that humanizes her. I mean, she's really only seen as this evil witch that turns men into pigs, and you get like a little bit of information about her in the Odyssey, but like not to the extent that you really want to know more, or that she has any kind of personality. I really liked the way Madeline Miller gave her life in this, and makes you want to like know more about her, and just this, it's just so well done. Like, I don't know. I just thought this book was brilliant, and the way that you get to know her and she feels so, I don't know, she feels like such a real being. Like, I just think it's great. And I think really what makes it feminist is just the fact that you get to see her through her own perspective. Like she's the one telling the story. And so you're going to get um, a more female telling in that. Let's see. Circe has empathy for mortals in a way that a lot of gods, or most gods, don't, aside from Prometheus. Why do you think this is? What is behind her fascination with mortals? And why do you think her encounter with Prometheus keeps coming back to her throughout the novel? So I had to look up Prometheus because I wanted to know more about what that myth is. Because I've heard of Prometheus, but I don't think I ever really fully read a mythology about him. And so, and I know there's a little bit in the book explaining it, but I wanted to see if I could find any more. And I still want to find more because I find Prometheus's story to be kind of interesting. But basically, Prometheus gave the gift of knowledge to man, or sometimes he's credited with creating men. Like I literally went to the Wikipedia to read more. Yeah, he's also credited with the creation of humanity from clay. He's known for his intelligence and for being a champion of humankind. So I can definitely see why Circe would be like compelled to want to help him or know more about him, because she too is very fascinated with humans. And I wondered if it's because her family basically didn't like her. Um, so I think like knowing that there was somebody else out there who was as interested in humans as she was, I think was just kind of an obsession for her. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Aaron. Maybe he just because he defied Zeus and she wanted to defy Helios. It's a good point. I like that. Um, because yeah, I thought about that quite a bit throughout the book because it's a moment she comes back to very frequently. And I'm like, I wanted to know why. Like, what about that thing? And I kept coming back to the idea that like her fascination with humans, was it because of Prometheus, or was that something that she already had and that Prometheus was intriguing to her because of that? I don't know. I still don't quite know, but I like the idea of it being because he defied Zeus. That's a good point. Let's see. One of the most exciting things about this novel is the witchcraft. Throughout history, witchcraft has often symbolized feminine powers and is maligned because of this. How do you feel about the way witchcraft is represented in this novel? And is it different to other representations of witchcraft that you've read? I have to say, I haven't read a ton of witchy books. Like, I don't tend to read a lot of that. So I don't have anything to compare it to that I can think of off the top of my head. But what I did like about it was how it separated her from the other gods, this ability that she had, which I found interesting because you kind of think of gods as being just like all powerful beings, but the Greek pantheon in particular feels very human. So whenever they're shown as being like above humanity, I find it interesting because like they are so human in their behaviors that it doesn't make sense to me that they would be like somehow above humanity. But I really thought it was interesting that her ability to use plants, to the pharmaca, was what set her apart, because I just like couldn't anybody do that? Like, what makes it something that only she can do? Is it an innate ability that she's born with? um so I thought that was interesting. Um, and I do think that witchcraft is often symbolized as something evil or bad. And I watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's like my only like real connection to witchcraft is what I've seen in that. And like it's shown on that as this like ultimate power that you can harness if you are trained well enough. And so I'm wondering, like, is it the same thing for this book, that it's something that's out there that anyone can learn, but the gods generally don't feel like compelled to. I don't know. So I don't know. I thought that was an interesting aspect of her character, though, the whole concept of being able to use that power and then use that power on other beings was interesting. I also really liked when she, at the beginning of the book, when I forget his name, the man that she fell in love with, and then she turned him into a god or an immortal being. I don't know if he would be a god, but like he was an immortal being after she worked a spell on him. And I found that whole scene, that whole section of the story really interesting. And it was such a pivotal moment for her, because in that she was able to, like, one, figure out that she could do this, had this power, and that she could use it on other people and other beings, but also that, like, I liked the concept of, and I don't know how to word what I'm trying to say, my brain's spinning, but I liked the idea that she found out who he really was. Like, what would you be if you were all powerful and lived forever? Like, what does that bring out of you? Would it bring out good things, or would it bring out bad things? And I think for him, it ultimately brought out not great things. Like, I don't think, I wouldn't call him a villain. I wouldn't say he was necessarily bad, but I feel like she brought out something in him that maybe wasn't what she was expecting. Yes. Aaron says the witchcraft in Circe is one of my favorite ways I've seen it done. I love how her growth in her craft coincided with her growth as an individual in her exile. Can we talk a minute about her exile? Because if I was ever going to be exiled, that is the ideal way to do it. I would love that. I feel like it would be like the nicest vacation I'd ever have. Like, you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean. You can just relax on your island with your self-cleaning house and your just beautiful scenery, and everything's always spotless. And oh my God, can I please? I thought that was amazing. And I just, like, what's the bad here? I feel like it wasn't really much of a punishment, but I couldn't decide if it was meant to be. Like, is this meant to be like an awful thing that's happened to her? Or is this meant to be a gift to her? Because it really felt more to me like her exile was a gift. And I just found it very confusing, because she thinks it's a punishment. But at the same time, she's very happy in her exile. The only downside being that, like, the men that come and all of the other nymphs that are sent her way for training and stuff, like, but I feel like I didn't see a downside overall to being a witch on your magical island. Okay, Kelly says, I found it interesting that she was made to believe she was less than and even ugly growing up, and then she found within her power her beauty as well. Yes, I agree. The idea that the thing that made her so ugly was that her voice sounded like a mortal was so interesting, because, like, what does a mortal voice sound like, and how is it so different? Like, I want to know, like, why does a voice make you ugly? And, like, does she appear to look more human too? Because I feel like all of the mortals that saw her thought she was this glorious being and beautiful and wonderful, but the rest of the Greek gods and her family were just, like, embarrassed to be seen with her and that kind of thing. So it was very interesting to me. Like, it made me think more about, like, what we think beauty is, and beauty standards, like, are so different in different time periods and in different places. And so it made me think a lot about, like, what we think of as beautiful and what we think of as ugly, and, like, why those things seem like that to us made me think about a lot of interesting things. Yeah, Aaron says it's totally a gift. I think living with the people she was raised among was the real torture. Agree. Yeah, they were very awful to her. And I mean, to be fair, Greek gods generally aren't like seen as nice. Like that's just not how they're usually portrayed. So like you expect cattiness, but they were really awful to her. And yeah, they're pretty petty and generally not very nice to anybody. Let's see. Yes, an unintended gift. I would definitely be totally down for that kind of exile. Let's see. How do you feel about the portrayal of Odysseus in this novel? His relationship with Circe, with Penelope, and others. Circe seems to have an affection for him, but why? And do we as readers care for him? I found it kind of interesting that we don't really get to know him very well in this story. We only see him through Circe's perspective and like being told about his exploits and what he's done, which I think is an interesting mirror to the fact that in the Odyssey, we really only get to see Circe that same way. Like we only see her in the Odyssey through his perspective, and we're told about what she's done. So I found that to be kind of interesting. I definitely want to go back and like reread the Odyssey because it's been a while, and I felt like this made me kind of want to dig more into that. Um, so I don't know what else do I think about Odysseus. I don't really feel like I cared that much about him in this story. Um, I found it more interesting that she named her son with him almost the same name as his son with Penelope, which was kind of an interesting little side story. I like that we got this relationship with Circe and Penelope and their children and everything. That was kind of interesting. To be fair, I didn't know any of that was going to happen in the book. Like I didn't really know that much about Circe like after when Odysseus is on the island with her. So all of that was interesting. I don't know how much of that is accurate representation of like the mythology and how much of that is Madeline Miller giving her a happy ending. But I definitely loved it. I loved all of that because I found it all really kind of beautiful that this like almost like this weird blended family because they shouldn't get along. Like we wouldn't expect Circe and Penelope to become friends because like in our society they would never get along. Yeah, Kelly says I cared for him because he brought Circe some comfort and her child. Sure, yes, but like as a character, like I didn't connect with him at all in this story, which I don't think I was meant to. Christina says, I fell in love with Greek mythology after reading the Odyssey, so I really enjoyed the side of the story from Circe's eyes. He felt less heroic here, for sure. Definitely. I think it really humanized him, and we saw more of his faults in the story. I really liked the idea, too, that Telemachus, I'm going to say everyone's name wrong, that Telemachus didn't want Athena's patronage. Like he didn't want any part of being a hero. He just wanted to be left alone. Just let me be on this island and live in peace. So I don't know. I think so often we're told that people want fame, but I think ultimately most of us don't. And we rarely see that in stories and stuff. We always see like the people that want that crave fame, that want to be heroes, that want all of that attention. And I think we worship celebrity in our society. So it was interesting to see that like somebody didn't want that. That it's almost handed to them on a platter, like, here, you can be a hero, you can be famous, everyone will know you forever. But no, he didn't want that. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective to see. Yeah, I don't know, Aaron. I don't know if that is something that he actually did turn down, or if that was just something that was written into the story. I would love to know. I'm going to have to do some research and see, because I don't know if that was, like, almost said historically accurate, mythologically accurate. Like, I don't know if that's something that really happened in mythology, or yeah, I don't know. And yeah, I agree, Christina. I loved the friendship that bloomed between Circe and Penelope. Yeah. And I think anyone would feel at home on that island, to be fair. Like, that's a great place to go for, like, a vacation. Which is kind of what that felt like it was for Penelope at first. Like, she just needed a break, and this is a perfect place for that. Especially after everything she'd been through with all the suitors and everything on Ithaca. Like, I can totally see wanting to just, like, veg out and chill for a little while. But I loved that Penelope was so interested in becoming a witch and in learning those powers. I thought the ending of the book was beautiful. I loved that, like, she was able to not only, like, help them, but she also was able to become mortal and finally, like, be able to experience the humanity she was so interested and invested in. I thought that was beautiful. Let's see. We met a lot of mythological beings in this story. Which one strikes you as the most interesting, or which surprised you? I would say, and this is dumb, but I was not expecting Hermes for some reason. And I'm a huge, huge fan of Hadestown. I don't know if anyone else likes that as much as I do. Probably not. But I love Hadestown. I listen to it constantly. And to me, Hermes is Andre de Shields. And so, like, that is what I was envisioning every time Hermes is in the story, which is just, I don't know, it kept making me giggle. Because, like, that's probably not what's intended there, but, like, that's what I'm seeing in my imagination. So that's probably what stuck out to me the most, was, picturing that version of Hermes in the story. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go check out Hadestown. You can listen to the entire soundtrack on YouTube. It's amazing. You can even find some videos of the performances and stuff. It's great. It's brilliant. Hadestown is kind of like a mythology story, and it's got, like, the Hades and Persephone story, but it also has Eurydice and what's his name, Orpheus. And it's beautiful. I love it. But yeah, there was a lot of different mythological figures there. I know there's a glossary in the back of the book that I did not actually reference very often, but I did look at it a couple of times, because there's just so many characters. So many characters. And some of them I feel like you really only got mentioned once or twice, so there's just a lot in there. Oh, yes. I'm going to say everyone's name wrong. Aedes, I think is how you say that. Yeah, what a jerk he was. Like, she basically raised him from infancy, and they were, like, best friends until he was like, ooh, but now I have my own kingdom. And suddenly he's better than her. Like, that made me very frustrated. Yeah, I highly recommend checking out Hadestown, Christina. It's amazing. I'm just, like, looking through here, like, who else was mentioned? I liked the interest of the story of the Minotaur. I'm trying to remember everyone's names. The Theseus and the Minotaur story that we got in here was great. Like, I really liked that we got the backstory for that. Like, I know that myth, but I never thought, like, how did that happen? Like, how did we get to that? Like, so that was very interesting. I felt like there was a lot of that in this book, like a lot of like just peeks into stories, or like, background information about a story or how something came to be. And I just found that to be really interesting. Like, I loved the whole thing with Scylla and how she was just really this awful mean girl, and that she made her into this true form, which was a monster. I thought that was great. But yeah, there was a lot of really interesting little like side story backstories going on in here that I just found really interesting. It was like a who's who of Greek mythology, honestly. Okay, the next question here is, how did you feel about Circe's romances with Glaucus? That's his name. I was trying to remember. When Odysseus, Telemachus, how do these romances affect her and change her? The only one I found a little bit weird at first was Telemachus, because like she had like a relationship with his father, and then she had a relationship with the son, and that was kind of weird. But I guess when you're an immortal being, like, that would make sense. But also it's still kind of a weird thing to me. but like they had this like beautiful relationship, because I think she too didn't really want the power she had. Like, she had it and she was able to use it and wield it when she needed to, but like she didn't really want any of that. She just wanted to know what it was to be a human. So yeah, I thought that was really, really great. The whole end was just beautiful to me. Let's see. Did you find the ending tragic or hopeful, or both? I don't think it was tragic. Like, I agree, Kelly. I didn't really like the whole thing with Hermes was just kind of off-putting, because he just felt like he was using her, and it was weird. I didn't like it. But yeah, I just thought the end of the story was beautiful. Does anyone have any other thoughts they want to talk about the story? Was there anything that we didn't mention? Like, I don't feel like we could talk about a favorite character, because I really don't think you're meant to know any other characters well enough to have a favorite outside of Circe. Like, she is basically the whole story. But yeah, I thought this book was great. Side note, I do know that Madeline Miller is working on her third book right now, and it's going to be a Persephone retelling, which I am just so excited about, because I have always wanted like a really good Persephone story, and I feel like Madeline Miller is the one to tackle that. Yes, Christina, I agree. It's a hopeful and heartwarming ending. The preference for humanity over immortal life was a nice change from a lot of fantasy that I've read lately. I agree. I think a theme of this story was like, fame isn't all it's meant to be. Like, maybe that's not exactly the theme that you're supposed to take from it, but it's something that I thought about a lot while I was reading. Yeah, I don't know if it was on Twitter or Instagram, I saw that Madeline Miller was talking about, I guess she was working on something else, but decided to set that aside and focus on a Persephone retelling, which I was just like, thank you. I've been wanting that for so long. And so I'm very excited about that. Where did I put it? Oh, over here. So our book for this month is Jawbone by Monica Ojeda. And I will be honest and say that I don't know very much about this. I wanted to read spooky. I wanted spooky things. It is spooky season. So I really wanted something to read this month with book club that would be kind of creepy. So I got this in a Nightworms subscription. But actually, I think I bought this before I got it. So I have 2 copies. So I gave one to Sarah. But I don't know exactly what this is going to be. All I really know is that there are 2 two girls who are best friends. They're super close. They have this really like tight relationship, and one of them becomes captive and they are held hostage. I don't really know much more than that, but it does say that there's like a lot of like pop culture references and things in here. So I'm hoping that it's good. I've heard a lot of people talking about this, and I know it got a lot of hype when it came out a couple of months back. Oops, I have doll stickers in here. I don't know why I put that in here though, because I don't think these stickers came with this, did it? Or maybe it did. I don't know. But I'm hoping, I don't know. I feel like what little I know about this, I feel like it might not be like really scary, but I might not be the person to ask about that, because I feel like a lot of books that people say are really scary, I don't think are scary at all. So I don't know. But this doesn't seem like it would be like super scary. This feels like more like it might be more thriller-esque. I don't know. I haven't read it though, so I could be completely wrong, but I've heard good things. So I'm hoping this is good. And we'll be reading that this month, and we'll probably do the live show. I don't even know. Let me look at my calendar. I haven't checked. I have no idea what anything is. Okay. It'll probably be the second Saturday in October for the live show, because the first Saturday is the 1st. And I don't know. This is going to be a weird month for me too, because we're going out of town later this month for my brother's wedding. So I don't know. I'm going to tentatively say we might do the live show for Jawbone on the 1st, but it's probably going to be the 8th, which I think, no, not the 8th. What am I talking about? What day is it? Yeah, no, it is the 8th. Okay. Looking at the wrong month. What am I doing? I'm clearly tired. Oh, I hope you guys will give it a try. I know. I try not to pick things that are really scary, but I did pick 2 horror books for September and October. So, but I don't think either of them are going to be like really scary. So I'm hoping that everyone can read them. The book for October is The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, and I'm going by what was it called? White Smoke, that came out last year, which was kind of pitched as horror and was not scary at all. Like, it was really more thriller than horror. So I'm going to count on that, but I want to say that's like a Carrie retelling. So I'm kind of excited because Carrie is one of my favorite things ever. So I'm excited for that. But let's focus on Jawbone, because that's the book we're reading in this month. So yeah, I hope you guys will all read that with me, and I hope it's not too scary. I don't know. I tried to choose things that I think will have wide appeal, but also that I really want to read. So yeah, I'm going to try to read a lot of horror this month though, because if I get picked to be a judge for the Sybils this year, which I really hope I do, but that means that I'm basically going to be swamped with middle grade for October through December. So, which is a great thing to be, don't get me wrong, but I won't be able to read all the scary things that I normally do in like September, October, November. So it's fine. I'm happy to read all the middle grade, because there's a lot of really great middle grade stuff too. So anyway, am I gonna vlog my experience with Sybils? I don't know, because I know one of the things they always say is that you can't say whether or not a book you're reading is going to be shortlisted, because like that's how it works. I get to read like all the things that get nominated, and then I need to decide, like, is this something I'm going to add to my shortlist? So I don't know if I'm going to vlog it, because I don't know if I'll be able to contain that, if I'll be able to like talk about a book but not be like, this is the best thing I've ever read. So I'm not good at that. I might do a vlog though, because maybe. I don't know how that's going to work though. I hope I get picked. Sarah's like, oh, of course you're going to get picked, Mom. You're like famous. So I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. My kids think I'm famous, which I think is adorable, but I am very much not. So, but she does say that I have the street cred. So maybe my street cred will get me chosen to be a Sybil's judge. So I guess we'll see. But I'm kind of hoping that I do get picked because I've always wanted to do it. I've always wanted the opportunity to like make people read a book and then like make it like so that everyone wants to read it, because I feel like a lot of the time the books that I love the most get the least amount of hype. So, like, I'm definitely going to be big on pushing all of the historical fiction titles that I love, because I feel like that is like definitely an underhyped category in the Sibyls. Like, there's usually like one historical fiction I feel like that gets nominated into the shortlist. So, and they almost never win. So I'm hoping, wouldn't it be great if the winner in the middle grade category was historical fiction? I'd be very excited. So fingers crossed. I'll know, I think, in like the next week or two. I think I want to say the end of the application period is the 9th, I think. So ideally, I find out like soon after that if I get to be a judge. So I hope so. But yeah, so anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I need to go get something to eat. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and chatting with me. I had a lot of fun talking about Circe. I can't wait for next month and talking about the Jawbone, because I feel like that's probably going to be the kind of book we have a lot of things to say. So, and Sarah has promised me that she's going to read that one. So I'm going to hold her to it, so that she will be joining us, hopefully, for the next live show. Oh, thank you, Erin. I'm glad to know that I influence people to read things. So that's exciting. Thank you. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks so much for coming, and I will see you guys next month for our Jawbone live show, and I'm sure I'll probably see you on the internets in between. So, and I'll get the stuff up in the Discord for Jawbone probably tonight. So you can look for that then. Thanks for watching and hanging out with me. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.